invaluable one. I'm now handing over the podium to Mr. Ibn Zohar to take on the last part. I don't know how he's going to compress it so that we are out of this place by 1 o'clock. This is from the mind to the world, and he is going to lead us in that particular aspect. He's already here. Give him a big round of applause.
You know, that is one with wife's problems. We have Hanai and Anouk. Anouk is one of the larger manufacturers in Zimbabwe, but he's also has many functions with the German to the Export Promotion Council. Hanai is the principal in economic analysis company consulting, and he's a good friend and partner with me in many projects. And Ruben has already been introduced. This is a panel, and panel means really that I'm just holding the microphone, let other people speak and ask questions, and I would like to have your participation as well. But let me just send some opening shots. And Ruben, you are we talk so much about the rough, we talk also about this type of the ocean, continent. You are facing our consumers. You are facing in New York. You're on the front there. Tell us how easy, difficult, or pleasant it is to sell Zimbabwe polished to the American market. Well, if of course you can know what Zimbabwe polished is.
I think we should talk about polish in general. I think that would be a more diplomatic way of speaking. The diamond trade obviously has changed tremendously over the years. To sell polish today, in the old days, we were known as diamond traders. We were able to sell from one to the other. Today, because as you all know, the profit margins are so low in polish, that everyone needs a niche. If you're a few cents cheaper than your neighbor, that's not going to get you the sale. There's so much knowledge today in diamonds, and a lot of it is false knowledge. People go online, they see prices, they read certificates, they don't see the diamonds. The imperfections can be strong in the center. Obviously, you know that's worth a lot less than the other diamond. But the consumer doesn't know that. He only sees the price. So the marketing today in New York has changed tremendously. Of course, price is still important, but it's not price that sells the diamonds. You need a niche. A niche means either mounting it for the consumer, which we never did in the wholesale trade, as added value. It may mean special cuts. We've seen more and more today special cuts in the industry. It may mean extra certificates. Today, besides the regular grading certificate, many people are using a light performance certificate, which can prove to the consumer that this is more brilliant than another stone. So the old way of trading is no more, and the new way has become very, very difficult. You are competing every day with the internet. Every day the consumer can go online and see a price of a diamond. So for us in the industry, when we used to make money selling to our neighbor, today we all have to go vertical. It's going to the retailer, it's going to the consumer, because there's no room anymore for any middle people. So that's basically the problems we face, and the challenges, I should say, in the polished industry in New York today.
Thank you, Ruben. And Ruben, I want to ask something similar to you from another direction. You are very much engaged in purchasing from Africa, Zimbabwe, other places. Can you tell us firsthand a little bit about your experiences just dealing with places like Zimbabwe, or you are so happy that there's nothing to talk about? Go ahead.
To buy Zimbabwe diamonds is a privilege, but the diamondaires are looking for a harmonious diamond world, and Basically, in this democratic world, we are looking forward for equal opportunities to everyone, and no particular country should be suppressed. Where buying diamonds from Zimbabwe, it has become difficulties to remit funds, to carry goods, insurance policies, all these difficulties we are facing, and the businessman tries to take out one or the other opportunities to take the problem solved one way or the other, but we are looking forward to the and asking the world not to suppress any particular country and let the diamond world be harmonious.
And I understand that although Zimbabwe diamonds are fully Kimberley compliant and come with certificates, but nevertheless they don't come directly. I know partly that's because of the marketing skills of Ahmed, but how do you see this, and why is that? Why is there the reluctance to go directly?
Diamond business, the diamantaires are business people. We are not politicians, and politics in the world which is suppressing the other countries like Zimbabwe, which is troubling diamond business environment, which we are looking forward that Zimbabwe should not be punished so badly.
That's half of the answer, and the other half? Let me phrase it differently. If someone has said to me that there is an unrealistic, unfounded, and maybe it's founded fear that diamantaires, imported companies deal indirectly because they are not sure what the policies of the United States and other countries are, and that is the uncertainty that it may impact the rest of one's business. Is that an exaggeration, or is some truth to that?
Nobody knows, but no businessman would take any risk for their money, if at all. They are stuck. Businessman wants to work with both the countries, even the United States and with Zimbabwe, but they would not risk their money at any time. So they have to take out logistically whichever is convenient for him to be stable.
I know A, that was the other 50%, and B, you are a politician and you are a diplomat. Hanai, you are the expert on what's happening on the finance side of the business. Now, diamantaires have been accustomed always to cry. They never make money. You know what that was? If they make money, the producers, Dave, close your ears. The producers will increase prices. And so they have to cry, otherwise they are paying more. So you never really find a happy diamantaire. But how bad and how good is the situation today?
I think the last 12 months have been bad for the industry. I think most of the diamond people in the downstream portion at least would agree. Part of it was the reason that the producers kept the prices high. What we've said before as well is that what happens in a normal scenario, which happened in 2008, the polished prices fall, people make losses on their stocks, which is both polished and rough. Rough prices fall more than the polished prices, and then people start seeing margins in manufacturing, and then you rebuild your capital. It's very similar to what, say, the US is doing for its banks, or the world did for its banks, wherein you allowed the banks to make money so that they can rebuild their capital because they've lost out on or they've taken a balance sheet hit. This time around, the last 12 months, especially since August last year, this has not been the case. So people actually had trading losses, which made the problem worse rather than trying to solve them. So yeah, I mean, yes, I understand that people generally cry about not making too much money, but this time it's probably much worse than that.
And when do we get out of it?
there's no easy way getting out of it, because what has happened is that the money has gone out of the industry, which means liquidity becomes tight, buying becomes more difficult, and people are, only buy what is required. One indicator of that is the stocks in the industry plus the kind of turns which you're doing, which has come down since what it was last year.
Thanks, Pranay. Do I see some hands in the audience? Yes, sir. Will you introduce yourself first?
My name is Jan, developing their gemstones, Lebebaev, David Yerman. Mike, where are you? He's from the embassy. Mike?
Okay, question over there.
No, I'm asking a question because it's also very important. The consul for the American embassy has actually stated that he will write a letter to GIA asking them to come here. And I'd like to thank him over there.
What is the question?
Ruben, will you write a letter to GIA?
I will thank you. Are there any other real questions?
GIA asking them to come here to make education something very important for Zimbabwe. Do you pledge that? Because education is very important, and this is something that we have not spoken about. And GIA refused to come here.
There are
They refused to come here because of the sanctions?
Yes.
No, there are another 40 countries that would like the GIA to come. I mean, there's a long line. They came to Israel after about 70 or 50 years of a strike.
They refused to come here to give a speech on sustainability. We offered them to come here to the mines to see everything. Mr. Mpofu opened our doors for that.
My friend, you're not on the panel. Thank you. Thank you.
Please, it's not fair. Education for Zimbabweans is very important. I'm sorry, but...
Thank you. Are there any other questions here, or should we just decide that we're not going to take questions from the audience? We really want to have discussion, but we don't want to turn this into something different. I think you're all overwhelmed with know-how and knowledge.
Sorry.
Well, I can't see.
I like to say that, please, I like to have just something, because actually what I'm asking is not something wrong.
No, but they have taken it. We know. And I promise you myself, when I see Donna Baker, I will mention it. Absolutely. Promise you. That's okay with you? No. You're dying to say Go ahead.
I think he has a point.
Yes, he has made a point. Of course he has a point, but he wants to go further. You forget something. You haven't really managed to manage Confernce. Those people are hungry, so I get 3 or 4 questions in, and then they want to eat. And I want to give them here. I don't want them to eat.
Kind, sorry, but I was the master of ceremony for India's life. Now, education should not be boycotted. And education is very important. Now, I follow the Kiki Devaris principle, which I'm sure you don't know who she is. But she's a Greek, okay? And she has embraced this country, and she's very welcome here. And she is one of my mentors. Now, I came here to do business, but I also came here to bring something to this country. And one of the things that I want to bring is education. And I've been always called the Che Guevara of the industry, because I speak my mind. Now, education is the core principle of this business that we're talking about. Everybody's here talking about trading diamonds. You're all here to take the diamonds away. So am I. But education should be a part of it. This is my opinion. Sorry. Okay? And I wanted my point, because we're all talking and seeing all these beautiful graphs. But the truth is, for Jacob there from Botswana, because I lived there for 2 years. It took 40 years for Botswana, from the time that they found the diamonds there, to have the diamonds sold in Botswana. And this country's been doing that from the very beginning. I have many more things to say, but I'll shut up. I'll say something which I didn't finish. He welcomed GIA to come to all the mines and take a look for themselves, that this is a wonderful country. And I thank Mike as well, who we keep talking bad about the Americans, But he said, I'll write a letter to Donna Baker saying that it's great to come here and have education. Thank you, Minister Mbogo.
May I make a remark? May I make a remark?
No. You have, I'm sorry, but you know what?
You have?
You tried to shut me up, and it's not fair.
No,
okay?
no. You are not listening. I was going to tell you that you have convinced me. And I'm glad that you spoke. Okay? Thank you. I'm also here to learn. That is why I love to go places. But, thank you. Do I see any other hands around here? The Minister.
Just wanted to make that point. I think the biggest challenge we have now as Zimbabwe, and as a really emerging diamond actor, is attracting the appropriate skills into value addition. And I have records here, and I know there's some colleagues here from the Ministry of Higher Education, where the country is spending a lot of money, including myself, sending children to Hong Kong, to the GIA Institute, to Israel. My expertise is studying in Israel, doing gemology, because she can't get accommodated in Botswana, because they are also trying to accommodate as many locals as possible. We have Zimbabweans all over the place, all over the world, looking for geological training. So please, you are welcome, my brother. And if that application.
Thank you.
And I told the ambassador, the assistant ambassador, Mr. Gonzalez, with or without sanction, if you can, we will always allow you to set up base here.
Minister, I have one more thing I want to say, and it's to prove my point. That GIA was founded in 2005, 2004. And I can tell you that I've been to almost 80 countries. And there were GIA students waiting for me there in each of the countries. Now, when I arrived in Botswana, #1 diamond producer in the world, there wasn't one GIA graduate that ever attended GIA in all the history of Botswana. Now, that to me doesn't sound right. Okay, that was a very planned, let's say, way of keeping the locals from being educated about cut diamonds. And GIA is not teaching anybody about rough, they're teaching them about about cut diamonds. So, Botswana, I'm not finished.
No, this is good news for you. Okay. Just wait a second. I'm still the moderator here. But I'm on your side now. So be nice. When I want to talk, I'm on your side.
I am Greek.
I want to show you how in this room politics work, and quickly and loudly. I have the pleasure to give the floor to the chairman of the World Diamond Council, Mr. Eli Eisenhower. That's what politics are, Mr. Minister. Okay. Are you okay?
I'll be happy when they're here. And by the way, there is a school now in Botswana. Through a lot of lobbying, I never got the credit for it, okay? But what's important is that there is a school there. And I hope, let's say, in the future, that there is a school here, because education is very important for Zimbabweans and Africans in general.
I will have myself write a letter to you offering that I am willing to come and speak at your school. Okay? Are there any other questions around here? Muti. Question to the panel. Okay.
Yes. I thought that we should probably just reinforce one or two matters. Okay, sorry, can you hear me? I thought we should just reinforce one or two matters that emerged over the past 2 days. And I think Anup has raised it. So, maybe Jillian, if you can also assist by addressing that. The issue is that if we're going to get rough supply lines from Zimbabwe moving into world markets, a critical factor is to ensure that funding lines work. Because you can't do business if money doesn't move. I think Anup has been raising that matter in more than one way in his slide. Minister, you agree that, buyers come, they look at the goods, they want to purchase it. Various services like courier services, insurance services, and those kinds of things are required, but also money needs to move. Now, we know that that's a huge difficulty with the sanctions regime that's imposed in Zimbabwe, and I think a real matter should be to hear from possibly Julian, possibly other players. Ruben, you've probably got some ideas of how does one address that? Because President Bush signed something. He probably didn't even know where Zimbabwe was when he signed it. He signed something. And that needs to be worked on. It needs to be reversed. It needs to be addressed. It's a critical matter. So I think that that's the one matter that I just wanted to hear the panel address. The second matter is the matter, Minister, of the regulatory frameworks, which Deputy Prime Minister Mutambara addressed yesterday. That, how are we as Southern African countries going to begin to address legislative frameworks to make it possible for the industry to flourish, for rough supplies to open up to local producers, the education point I think was important, and a couple of other things. So, I wonder if one or two members of the panel want to address that. Thank you.
That was an eloquent statement. I don't know if any one of the panel members or other people of you would like to go to it. Then you're an ad hoc member of the panel, so feel free to.
Yeah, but the problem is that the issue that you're raising is a bilateral U.S.-Zimbabwe issue, and I'm the KP chair. I'm not representing the United States, and I'm not in a position to go into issues of bilateral relations. Sorry, I'm here for the KP. And the KP is not sanctioning anybody.
I can't. Someone just go. Sorry, I can't. Can you raise your hand if you want to talk?
I respect that, Julian. Totally. I think that you're absolutely correct that you're the KP chair and this is a bilateral matter. But what I'm asking is that if we are to emerge from this conference with real measures, then as much as we expect that the KP of the flow of funds to do business. Now, I know that that's not your mandate as chairperson of KP, and I don't think for 1 minute I'm asking you to engage in bilaterals. I think that would be unfair. But what I'm saying is that there are industry leaders here. I think pretty much the industry heads in this conference. What measures emerging out of this conference are we beginning to put in place to address those matters? Not necessarily ourselves conducting those bilaterals. Ideas.
Martin, thanks. We're all in agreement here. Of course, this is a conference, but I think that the sense of the conference is being reported in all the media, all around here, and I think that everybody that comes home from here will be carrying on that message. And that message is that the sanctions are hurting far more than just Zimbabwe.
Right. If I can just say, I think Mike is sitting back there, and perhaps if somebody wants to give him a microphone, since he is representing the U.S. Embassy.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic.
The sanctions that are in place from the United States regarding Zimbabwe are not about the country of Zimbabwe, which is why I was pleased when Yanni raised the GAI issue to write a letter, because the United States fundamentally believes that Zimbabwe is open for business. We're thrilled to see business conferences like this, where businesses from around the world want to take advantage, in partnership with the people of Zimbabwe, of the opportunities that exist here. Now, there are also sanctions on about 123 individuals from the Zimbabwean government and the former ruling party, as well as about a dozen parastatal organizations responsible for the undermining of the rule of law and democratic institutions that this country has seen over the past decade. Nothing to do with the Kimberley process, nothing to do with Meringue, in terms of why those sanctions were imposed. Now, yes, Two of the state-owned enterprises that are subjected to those restrictions include ZMBC and the Minerals Marketing Corporation of Zimbabwe. And that's why diamonds that come out of Zimbabwe are caught up in the sanctions. Now, what can industry do to address that sanctions issue? It's fundamentally going back to the undermining of the rule of law and the democratic institutions in this country. And so, the messages that corporate leaders and captains of industry such as yourselves can do is engage with the leadership of Zimbabwe across party lines and emphasize the need for maintaining the rule of law, maintaining the constitutional obligations of the state institutions, whether it's the security sector, the state prosecutor. And when that happens, as we see progress in terms of Zimbabwean officials honoring their obligations that they themselves signed up to in the Global Political Agreement, or the roadmap to elections brokered by SADC, then there will be no further rationale for why we need to maintain restrictions on Zimbabwe. But right now, given the past decade, the activities and events that the past decade has seen in Zimbabwe, the people of the United States and the Congress of the United States and the presidents of the United States have determined that these restrictions are appropriate and in order to respond to the degradation of the rule of law. Thank you.
May I just a follow-up question? If the problem is a government-owned company, if the problem is with government-owned partners, if the government in its wisdom, in a transparent and in a good governance manner, would establish or have established other companies that would be the governmental partner, would that change the situation?
Again, the restrictions that are in place are a response to the broad environment. They're not necessarily a response to individual transactions. I would argue that improved, enhanced transparency, certainly within and across ministries within the government, would absolutely help. But fundamentally, those restrictions are in place about things that are totally unrelated to the diamond sector, totally unrelated to any given transaction, but what those funds are being used to perpetuate.
My friend, the minister wants probably to say something. You want to? Sorry, please. You have always the right of preference. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Liz. And I want to thank Mike for repeating what has been said before, and which is not relevant to the issue at hand. I had actually requested the Attorney General to perhaps address the legal issues that were made reference to by Mike. You see, we are a member of the KPCS, an undisputed member of the KPCS. And we have a chair who chairs all of us. And I think the charter makes us equal. We are equal members of the KPCS. And as our chair, we expect to be treated equally with all other members. But in this particular case, there's been reluctance to issue a KP position on these issues. We are not asking the chair, who is a wonderful chair, to speak for the United States government. We are asking the chair to speak for the KPCS. To clearly state the position of KP. We have been, the whole world does not believe what Mike is saying. And he knows it, he's my friend. What he's saying, he does not believe in. I know that. Look, I'm an open speaker. He also is very open. What rule of law? Tell me, I mean, he's been here, they've been here. This is the most democratic, most peaceful, most lawful country. In Zimbabwe, if you pick up, you steal a pen, you'll be arrested within a few minutes. Is that not law and order? Where do you find that in any part of the world? You see, we hear of deaths in the streets in New York, in Washington, every hour. But you never, if there is a death here, we don't give bail to dead killers. So what the rule of law? Look,
okay.
this is.
As a moderator, I would ask you if the very fact that Ambassador Dillon is here is also a statement.
Yes, what we're saying. No, and we have been saying this before, and it won't stop us from doing what we're doing anyway. But we are saying let the KPC come up with a position that actually will comfort the traders, the diamond traders. I mean, I look at him, he's my friend. He's scared because the Americans are here.
I had first 50% of the answer, then I got 100, and now you make it 200.
I've interacted with colleagues here, they're whispering to minister, what say certain things, because we will be held and they will be actually affected by the sanctions. They will interfere with my account, they will actually monitor my movement and what have you. Is that democracy? Is that the law? What do you call it?
Vasant, you have a comment? Thank you, sir. Vasant?
I'm so very glad that Mike is here. That Mike is here in a diamond conference. There are political things, political issues that might be going on. But this conference is an international diamond conference. And I believe the industry, the global industry of diamond is ready to accept Zimbabwe as a new member of the family after the way they have behaved in the last few years in the Kimberley process system. There were times when many of us had doubts about what Zimbabwe is doing, how is it behaving in the human rights issue or human behavior or human atrocities and all that. In those 2 years that I have attended each and every of the Kimberley process meetings, it has been certified by independent observers, and in addition to that, people like Chaim and people from the United States who are in the industry. And they have certified that the Zimbabwe industry is now within the guidelines set by the KPCS. I don't understand. I mean, we need the diamonds. The diamond industry today is in a bad shape. If there are sanctions on the movement of diamonds from a very large source, believe me, in the next few years, the speculative trend that we would see in this industry would be a fatal. And I urge Mike and Madam that when you go back to America, please take a message that this is what the industry needs. And I request you to.
Thank you. Do I see any more hands?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to throw a little light on the issue that has just been presented for us by the U.S. Embassy. I'm happy that they've repeated the fact that the reason why the U.S. continues to have sanctions on identified individuals is because of the issues of good governance. I wish you would all ask what that entails, good governance. I believe that good governance is to govern in terms of your constitution and in terms of your laws. nobody is saying that Zimbabwe is doing it outside that. The issue of the rule of law, I'm glad that he's raised that issue as well. I do not think we have a different understanding of what the rule of law means. Our understanding, which I believe is also universal, is that the rule of law means that you conduct yourself or you do your business as guided by, once again, your constitution and your laws. And nobody's saying that we're doing it another way. Now I want all of us to recollect what we said here. I've had it on record that we have all endorsed in saying that Zimbabwe has more than complied with the KPCS processes. Now what that means is that Zimbabwe has carried out the business of diamond extraction, diamond storage, and diamond trade is guided by the rules of the KPCS. That is what I understand to be the meaning of doing things in terms of the rule of law. Now, this occasion was raised by, at the highest level, none other than the head of state of this country, Zimbabwe.
Just a second for those in the audience who don't know, Mr. Kamano is the Attorney General of the Republic of Zimbabwe. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. The president of this country, Corporal Robert Mugabe, is #1 on the sanction list that he is referred to. Don't we all see the contradiction between the persistence that he is in violation of good governance, he is in violation of the rule of law, when he is the one who is leading this process that is passed the test and has more than complied. Honorable Minister of Mines, Minister Dr. Obed Pofu, sitting there, he is one of the people of the sanction list. He is the one who is supposed to steer and lead this effort by Zimbabwe to comply. And he has demonstrated beyond doubt that he is not just committed. He intends to beat everybody, and you have endorsed it. You said he has more than done it. Why does he continue to be on the sanction list? I'm there too. We are doing the best to make sure that we comply, to make sure that Zimbabwe complies with everything that the KPCS prescribes for us and for its membership. Again, we don't understand why the sanctions are there. But most importantly, I want us to revisit the mystique. I'm confused a bit here. I thought the KPCS was a grouping of member states, and leadership of this grouping is headed by member states. Now, I have a problem distinguishing the state member and the person who is seconded to lead and guide this very important institution. I think it's a fiction to look at the two separately, and that's where the real problem is. Because we have not allowed members of the KPCS to come to Zimbabwe for nothing. The reason is we wanted the whole world to see how transparent we are. We wanted the KPCS, and we were very happy that the United States is now leading this important institution. Happy because we were going to give them the opportunity to see for themselves that there is no rule of law problems in Zimbabwe. There is no good governance problems in this country. And we have looked roundly around the issue of diamond extraction. We've looked at all the allegations that have been made by such members as PAC, for example, the observer here. We've seen that they are lying, there are no human rights issues around this. So where is the mistake? Is it not making sense that all the family in the KPCS, which I believe is an international institution that is born out of the UN, why is it not making sense that after we have been this transparent, we are not getting the reprieve? I think let's do away with the fiction and assist each other honestly and be able to derive the benefit that diamonds can give to all of us as a family in this world. I thank you.
Thank you.
And I am not here for the United States government. And in that light, there is something that I would like to be very clear about, because there are two issues that are consistently conflated and seen as essentially the same thing. And with all the respect that I owe everyone who is distressed by the situation in which they may find themselves, the KP and the criteria for being found compliant is an entirely separate issue from this sanctions issue. The sanctions issue is a bilateral U.S. matter, which, again, I understand all of the concerns and all the arguments that can go with respect to that. But compliance with the Kimberley process certificate system is unrelated to the issue of U.S. sanctions. Now, my colleague, Dr. Mpofu, said, should there not be equality amongst all the members of the Kimberley process, and Zimbabwe appears not to be enjoying equality despite the fact that it has met the criteria of the Kimberley process and been found compliant and has indeed behaved in an excellent manner, which has been multiple times recognized, including when I made my own remarks yesterday. And the answer that I must give is that with respect to the Kimberley process, Zimbabwe is in fact like every other member of the Kimberley process. It has shown itself to be compliant. It is therefore entitled to issue certificates of Kimberley process certificates, and is therefore entitled, with respect to the Kimberley process, to trade and to export. So, I'm sorry because this may sound extremely technical, but one must be clear, because otherwise we get into mixing two things and there is confusion. Within the Kimberley process, all of the countries which have met the criteria, which absolutely include Zimbabwe, are treated in the same manner, hence the fact that Zimbabwe issues its certificates and trades freely. Separately from that is the issue of United States sanctions. Thank you.
Thank you. Your point is well noted. And over here.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. I think the ambassador made it clear from the perspective of the KPCS. However, it is very clear that within the sanctions and the effect of the sanctions, they are also touching the diamond industry. And I think the gentleman from India made it very, very clear that if we are to separate the issue of the sanctions from the diamond industry, we must do that in entirety. We cannot say the sanctions are separate while as they affect the diamond industry. Then they become linked. So if the sanctions are separate on governance, whatever definitions they are, then it must not affect the diamonds of Zimbabwe at all. And as a member of the KPC, I think we must then make it very, very clear through our chair lady that the KPC, the KP member countries, they feel that the sanctions that are imposed on Zimbabwe should be on other things and not on the diamond, because Zimbabwe has proven that yes, they are in compliance, and therefore anything that concerns the Zimbabwean diamonds must be out of the sanctions. Thank you.
Of minds of Namibia, and we thank you for the intervention, sir. If I may say something personal, I was on the review mission of the KP that reviewed the mining operations. with your representative, my good friend Kennedy. And at one point Kennedy sat down with a drink among himself, and he said, you know, those mines are more compliant and are better than the mines in Namibia. And that was your man who said that. But both of you are great compliant, okay? I thank you, but let's give a hand to the minister for speaking up. Eli.
Yes, I would like to reiterate something reached by consensus. The EU was there, the United States was there, although the United States did not vote for it, but they didn't vote against it. So therefore, immediately after that, the WDC issued a press release strongly supporting that agreement and that decision. And as far as the world diamond industry, importing for Zimbabwe is completely legal, and speaking on behalf of the World Diamond Council, we support that. Regarding the bilateral relationship with the United States, of course, we have no power to do anything about it, but I just want to make it clear to all the people who import from Zimbabwe, they do it with the sanction both of the KP, as the chair said, and the World Diamond Council. Thank you.
The Permanent Secretary. Sorry, the chairman. Zimbabwe Mining Development.
Do we move money as we do business with Zimbabwe? I mean, with respect to the representative of the US government and the KP chair, that question needs to be answered, because particularly for the KP chair, members of the KPCS are asking a pointed question. You have said Zimbabwe is KP compliant and you can do business with Zimbabwe, and they've raised this issue. How do we do business with Zimbabwe when we cannot move money? When every time we want to move money, it will be blocked by the Office of Foreign Assets Control of the United States of America. In other words, if there is no answer to that question, what the KP chair is basically saying is that you do business with Zimbabwe at your own level. And consequently, what the Honorable Minister is saying is that we are not getting protection from our chair remains unanswered. I think this question needs to be answered by the KP chair. How does US dollars, or how do US dollars get moved in this environment? By companies which want to do business with Zimbabwe Mining Development Corporation and the other companies, and they are totally KP compliant. And yet America stands there to block the movement of that money. It means all the work that has been done here, all the expectations of the participants here, whom you share, Madam Chair, will go into smoke if you cannot assure them that they can move money into Zimbabwe, they can do diamond business with Zimbabwe without interference from the United States of America.
Thank you. I answered by the chair, and I think she will give the same answer. Eloquent and clear, but you won't get the same answer. Yeah, but thank you for raising this. The KP chair, the KP monitor, Shikani, the first case.
This matter, and I was very prepared to address it more comprehensively when I speak after lunch. But just to say that as a matter of principle, I think historically, within the Kimberley process, there has always a consensual agreement among participants. And in the event that the chair or her country is conflicted, or to one level with the African Union, with SADC and other multilateral, or a manner in which the position of the United States on Zimbabwe can be aligned with that of African countries. I'm specifically referring to the global political agreement, the government of national unity, that were all supported by multilateral organizations in Africa. And I presume that, for instance, the reason why the European Union is considering moving on the issue of sanctions is partly because they have been monitoring the situation and they are satisfied that there is progress. And we expect that, I think in March, that there may be a change in that position. And one assumes that the United States at some point would also reconsider this position and support Zimbabwe. Especially because just remember that the only difference between everything else that is happening and possibly the rationale for sanctions is that diamonds in this country are meant to support development in this economic development and also to build corporate governance institutions and strengthen this government, because I think we've all been saying that we need political, social and economic stability, and in order to achieve that you need resources to do so. So in a way, I think the ambassador does support the fact that we need to support these African countries, including Zimbabwe, economically, and I think any sources of revenue that would come from diamonds should be able to support development. And hence this policy, I think, is to take that into account.
Thank you.
Institution is carried out. Now, I thought in pushing for reform, you would be targeting those issues that actually weaken or slow down the kind of pace that we would rather want to see in attaching to our processes here. Now, would you not agree that this matter that affects all members, in their effort to try and participate fairly in this business, in buying diamonds from Zimbabwe, for example, and not being able to get their parcels, buying diamonds and Zimbabwe not being able to get its cash, is it not an issue that should be the focus for, say, reform to make the KPCS more effective? Thank you.
Recuse yourself. That was the question from here.
I'm making a reply.
Good.
No, I repeat, you're looking for something very dramatic in response to some relatively dramatic phraseology of questions that have been put to me. I'm not that dramatic a person, for starters. There are a number of assumptions in some of the questions which I would disagree with, starting from the idea that the Kimberley process is an organization where one is somehow like the director of a company and one is supposed to recuse oneself, and that the role of the Kimberley process is somehow a political one in which one takes stands with respect to various matters that are outside of the process, even though they may indeed affect them. Now, if that ultimately is the direction in which the Kimberley process, which is a certification scheme for rough diamonds, wishes to develop, that will certainly be an interesting, different job description than the job description, as I understand it, of the Kimberley process chair, which is to make sure that the process itself in its fundamental activities runs smoothly and to carry out the decisions that were taken by consensus of an assortment of plenaries. That is what I do, that is what my job description is, and that is what I will continue to do until the end of the term. Now, I appreciate, however, the fact that there is an enormous amount of emotion and that there has been an enormous amount of emotion from day one, and I do understand that. But again, as far as I can tell, in Kinshasa, after 2 years of considerable discomfort and struggle, the Kimberley process did come together and did arrive at a solution, which is what Eliazakov referred to. And a decision was made by consensus, which, as he also pointed out, the United States did not participate in, but also did not prevent from occurring, which led to Zimbabwe returning to the fold and being able to issue certificates. I believe that that is the area in which the Kimberley process is and ought to be active, and we have, as chair, worked with Zimbabwe and worked with others, and worked with the processes of the Kimberley process, notably the monitoring groups, of which Mr. Chikanya is a member, to follow up on the decisions of Kinshasa. And I have been very pleased to be able to find, as has been multiple times referred to here, that Zimbabwe has indeed done things that were expected of it and deserves considerable congratulation for that. And I trust that that will continue into the future. Now, that again, to me, is the focus of my responsibility. These other concepts which have been raised in the questions are indeed intellectually interesting. There are those who may wish to pursue them. I would note that this is not a Kimberley process meeting, and therefore, despite the fact that there are certainly arguments pro and con about whether the entire Kimberley process is affected or not, nonetheless, this isn't the venue for it. Now, understand, please do not take that as an invitation to make this an issue for the plenary. I would appreciate it if you managed not to do that. I would be happy to concede that to Minister Shabangu and to Ambassador Tlhapo over here for the next process. I think that fundamentally, rather than engage in headbutting and rather than have challenges and conflict amongst ourselves, which I think has unfortunately characterized for a while, in the recent past, the Kimberley process, I think we ought to cherish the capacity to talk with one another, not in a confrontational manner, but in a manner which leads to collaboration and work. If I'm sitting here, and if this man invited me here, maybe it is indeed because, as the Attorney General said, there was a desire to demonstrate Zimbabwe's transparency and its openness. But I think it's also because I didn't fit the mold that they expected, and they haven't necessarily fit the mold that I expected. And I think that that is one of the most valuable things about the Kimberley process. Not that it looks like some board of some company. I've never been on a board of a company. Not that it is this legality or the other legality. It's that we have the capacity to talk to one another and to look for solutions in a collegial manner. And that's what I'm going to try to continue to do. And with your help, I hope I'll succeed. Thank you.
Who are here today, what I have perceived to be one of the major themes that have come out from many of the presentations that we made by the various honourable members who are here, as well as ministers of various countries, and including certain of the statistics that came out very much in your presentation, Simon. And one of the most important factors for me was the fact that it has been clearly indicated the importance of Zimbabwean diamonds to the diamond industry, and also the role that the Zimbabwean diamonds are going to play in the chain, both now and in the future. And I believe that the Kimberley process, in this instance, needs to find a solution to enabling the business to grow and to continue in Zimbabwe, to become as important to the economy of Zimbabwe and the people of Zimbabwe as it should be. How is it possible that the process cannot support the business by allowing the freedom of the movement of money? It does not make sense. How can Zimbabwe be such an important role player and be denied the opportunity to conduct business? The Honourable Minister earlier on made a point, comment freely. And I can assure you this goes much, much further than just one individual business. I can tell you that the banks in South Africa are in fear. South Africa, who's a neighbor here, who supports Zimbabwe, and our people are so interlinked, is in fear on account of the sanctions that are imposed by the United States. Thank you.
As a consequence of these sanctions, actually may create conflict diamonds. So, since it is the mission of the Kimberley process chair, it is the mission of the Kimberley process chair to make sure that there are no conflict diamonds anymore, we cannot but conclude that the fact that there are sanctions against Zimbabwe, potentially a producer of more than 50% of the world production, creates conflict diamonds. So this is an issue that the Kimberley Process Chair himself or herself has to tackle. It's implicit. And I understand, of course, that it is extremely difficult for you to do that. But the mandate of the Kimberley Process Chair should be to solve the issue. Thank you.
I'll make one last remark on this, without going into detail. I think that, again, with respect, and despite all of the emotion and all of the genuine concern that's in this room, I am not challenging that in any way, shape, or form. We are not in a position to suddenly make a definition of what is and is not the role of the Kimberley process, and what is and is not the role of the chair. One could cite a whole bunch of other examples and then begin to posit that this is suddenly the role of the chair. And I think we're going too far with this. I'll tell you that most of my work as the Kimberley Process Chair has involved convincing people that things that they assert should be involved in assessing a member or deciding whether something is correctly done or not is in fact not to be considered, because the encouragement is to in fact make sure that that which is in the Kimberley process and no more and no less is in fact considered. And I would say that some of the same concerns that are now being expressed about why don't you expand the role of the chair and why don't you have a broad definition of what constitutes the process by which a conflict diamond is created or any other thing, and much extrapolation about what might or might not ensue as a result of sanctions. The same arguments are the same people making the arguments about you need to take the broadest loose construction definition of your role in the Kimberley process would, in another circumstance, be very clear about the fact that one must take the most strict construction, removing anything that is not literally written in stone in the original Kimberley process agreement. And so, for one thing, again, this is not the forum, this is not a Kimberley process forum. I'm not aware that this is a plenary which is mandated to redefine the role of the chair. And that's on the procedure. The issue, by the way, has nothing to do with being conflicted by nationality. This is a question of principle and the manner in which an organization should be run. I respect totally the fact that there is this conference and the freedom of discussion, but it is not a decision-making body of the Kimberley process. And I am the chair of the Kimberley process, and I am not going to assume that the views, however worthy they may be, of individuals or even groups of individuals here present constitute a redefinition of the mandate of the chair. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I don't agree. I don't agree. Since you cannot properly pay, ship, or insure the diamonds which are 100% Kimberley compliant, there is a risk that one of the things you want to eradicate, and that is smuggling of diamonds, might happen. So, it is an issue, and I'm not addressing this to you personally as the Kimberley process chair, but it is an issue for the Kimberley process as a whole that should be tackled. Because potentially you actually create what you want to avoid.
More people, Lebanese, and more people that are out there trading the diamonds, and they're all trading terrorism in an indirect way. Okay? I'm telling you because I have seen this. I have seen this personally myself. Okay? I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this, but the Hezbollah are actually funding a lot of the Lebanese who are buying the stones. Okay? Which is indirectly creating the conflict diamonds. And for Mike, where are you, Mike? He's still here. For Mike, we need to end this with a good note. This could be a wonderful, wonderful place. You are the face of America here in Zimbabwe for America. And you need to open up the eyes there and give a little bit more positive note. Okay? I've been here 5 months. I'd like to see the guys who are running with those bunny cards cutting diamonds. These guys are hard workers. They are artists. They know how to carve. And when a white person tells me that a black man cannot cut diamonds, I know that they have a colonialist thinking to them. I'm telling you that. Africans can cut diamonds. They can put them into jewelry. They're amazing carvers. I'm a jewelry designer. I'm bringing my family here. You can arrest me when I come to America. I have my passport here. Okay? I'm willing to take a risk on this country. And it's not perfect. It is not perfect. But it's good enough to bring my wife here and my son.
This has a very limited mandate, as the chair has said, and as a representative bilaterally of the United States that focuses on Zimbabwe, the United States recognizes the tremendous progress that Zimbabwe, through the government and the leadership of Minister Mpofu, as well as the individual minds at Morenge, have taken in meeting the minimum KP-specific requirements and standards. We recognize that. The other, as laudable or as appropriate as they are, or as meaningful as they are in your minds, I appreciate that, but they're not KP issues.
But this is not a KP conference, sir.
It's not a KP conference. It's a diamond conference.
It's a diamond conference, and we think it's a very valid issue. All people from around the world came here to show support for Zimbabwe, otherwise they wouldn't come, and to give you a message, and we would like to know what can be done to go forward on the sanctions. KP is fine, JB, that's not the issue.
No, absolutely. And on the sanctions, I think there are a couple of steps. Over the coming years, Zimbabwe will be facing several opportunities. The completion of its constitution, subjecting it to a referendum of popular will, engaging with some reforms to bring local laws into compliance with that new constitution, holding an election that's free, fair, credible, in line with the laws that the people of Zimbabwe have established for themselves, not that someone from outside has imposed on them, and holding that in a nonviolent way. I call on the Attorney General, the people of Zimbabwe, the security sector of Zimbabwe, to honor the call that President Mugabe has made over and over for the past several years. There shall be no violence, political violence or otherwise, going forward. If the people of Zimbabwe, the government and security sector of Zimbabwe, honor their laws and honor the will as expressed by President Mugabe, there will be no need for sanctions, and the new ambassador, the new United States ambassador, would love to be the ambassador to Zimbabwe at the time when the U.S. removes sanctions. The ball lies with the people and the government of Zimbabwe to honor its laws, to honor the role of its. If that happens, the sanctions can be gone.
This was 1980 when I went to high school. Okay, this is when I graduated. This was just around the corner. Now enough. Okay, this country is not perfect. But Botswana, which, sorry to say, Jacob, Botswana has got only 1.9 million people. Okay, now, this is one of the largest diamond producing countries in the world. And yet 50% of the people are unemployed probably. Okay, maybe 40% or 30%, and they like to say it's 20%. Okay, but they don't have employment. Okay, the country has been robbed by the whites. You speak about good governance. Okay, how is it possible that a country since 1967, when it got its independence, basically has people who are 50% poor? How is it? I'm not done time. Okay, why have you chosen? I'd like to propose something. If this is going to become a government issue, like a governance, why is Botswana diamonds not boycotted? Why? Why is it that a country that's been robbed by whites, okay, is not boycotted? For a country that's been going for 40 years, you would think that 1.9 million people would have money in the bank. Where would I go and lobby for them? Russia is stealing. We read, Mike, you know more than anybody, the newspaper. Freedom of speech is a part of our independence. And one of the things that you're going to have to deal with me, I'm half Texan and half Greek, and that's a lethal combination.
Just wanting to contribute this probably for the next KB plenary. Because it's like the United States of America appoints the chairperson, but that chairperson seems not to represent the United States of America. Now, I'm saying this because we thought that as a member state of the KP, and therefore if all the members, including the United States, who has appointed the chair, have agreed on a position, that position should be binding to all the members, and not only the views of the chairperson who is representing the country. I think the next plenary should go and deliberate on that issue, that if Namibia is a member and then we appoint a chairperson, we got the chairmanship, that means whatever the KP agrees, Namibia agrees, and binding to that. Thank you very much.
The Kimberley process operates on consensus. So technically, what you said is correct, in that it has nothing to do with who's the chair and who isn't the chair. I mean, if there is a decision actually made by the plenary of the Kimberley process, that means there is a consensus decision. So indeed, every country, including the country from which the chair comes, has agreed. But that's very different from a discussion about what is the role of a chair. And if you look at what usual expectations of a chair are, it is precisely that that person will not represent the views of their own country, but will take the responsibility for trying to bring together the organization and not put forward specific national views, but will work for the organization. And so I don't see that the fact that a particular country, in this case the United States, puts forward someone would imply a particular relationship between the chair and that country. In a properly working chairmanship situation, the chair then separates themselves from that country of origin. There is, for example, a United States delegation to the Kimberley process. I
do want to end it in a positive note. This dialogue has been fantastic. We have had on Sunday night a meeting with the chair and the ministers and the top industry leaders, and you should have been there. It was very, very open discussion. Everybody said his mind.
I do want to give a hand to
Thank you, Ham. I think this has been, sorry. This has been, I think, democracy at display in Zimbabwe. But I think what Eli has said is correct, and I'm sure it's confirmed what colleagues have said. But if you can recall what happened in DRC, I think there was a lot of frustrating. See, we knew the United States was going to object to that consensus, and they knew we were going to object to their chairmanship. So it's not, it wasn't as and that's a bilateral issue, and this consensus was achieved through a bilateral solution from the two what do you call them? From the two players. I mean, you cannot avoid the political intervention or the political role in this whole thing. I mean, she's a diplomat. Look, she has tried her best to address the issues, and in a manner that we are comfortable with. But the fact remains that really it's not only a United States bilateral issue with Zimbabwe. I think it is beyond that, and there's targeting, and they call them targeted sanctions. It's targeting now the KPCS, and the KPCS should take a position so that the world knows exactly what the position of the KPCS is.
Will you agree, sir, that we make a decision after lunch in the afternoon?
I'm sitting here until the end of this.
You know, we have We have heard a lot here about wives. Everyone brings your wife. I'm the secretary. The secretary prepares my itinerary before I travel, and then she looks if there is some money of the local currency. And I got notes of 5 billion. And I said, that isn't valid anymore. And then she said, but it says issue date 15th of May 2008. I said, yes, but since then, a lot has changed in Zimbabwe. And I salute you all, and I wish you bon appetit, good appetite, and we see you in the afternoon.